This is one of those other examples. I feel like my whole life is art and stories falling into my lap. I was giving a talk at a museum down in Florida where someone came up to me who had lived in Paris for several years, and she said, "Have you heard about the American Girls Club?" And I thought, that sounds strange, or it sounds like American Girl dolls, like the collector dolls from the 80s and 90s that I think are still around today. But it was a real place, and it was specifically to support and house, bring women together from the US who were living and working in Paris as visual artists and occasionally as musicians during that period just prior to World War I. And it's really fascinating because I had not known about this place, even though 19th century France is my wheelhouse in art history. And so I was excited to learn about it. The house itself still exists. It is in the Montparnasse area of Paris. It's now connected to Columbia University's global programs. Just over 20 years, all strata of American society and expats coming through Paris would converge. There was a tea room there, a restaurant there. They had art exhibitions and meetings there, and people sort of made it their center of the American female art experience during that time. There were so many women. I think conservatively, we can say that several thousand women came through, either lived or were involved at the club in some way, either as members or people actually living on site. But some of my favorites involved a lot of people who went on to become regional painters, like Anne Goldthwait was a painter originally from Alabama, connected later with the up New York City, where she was an instructor at the Art Students League, which is one of the most famous art schools. It's been around for about 150 years at this point. And I loved her, and she was somebody who really struggled with trying to find her exact artistic style. And going to Paris, she ended up being somebody who was connected with Gertrude Stein and going to enjoy Gertrude Stein's art literary salon that she held every weekend. And being exposed to Gertrude Stein's art collection sort of changed her mind about modern art. She was very struck by it, I think, by a lot of people were at that time, and really trying to figure out, should I become more modern in my art style, which is pretty traditional, or should I stay in that more traditional academic realm, and gave them the opportunity to see things like the development of modern art that was going on, not in the art schools that they were attending, but by people like Picasso and Matisse and Georges Braque, like Anne Goldthwait, to say, should I stick with this more traditional style that I've always known? Or should I be pushing the boundaries and leaning more into the modern way? I also loved an artist who's based in Albany who was named Alice Morgan Wright. And she also had some struggles during her Paris time. But what I love about her is that it wasn't in her style. She knew she wanted to be a sculptor and she was really great at it. But she got really involved in politics in Paris, French suffrage fighters. So especially a woman named Emmeline Pankhurst, who was a British suffragist. She struggled with trying to say, do I want to jump in wholeheartedly to the suffrage cause, or do I want to continue working with art? And so you can see there's a period of time in which she tapers off her artwork so that she could go fight more for the cause for women's right to vote. I would say probably two things that I really think are most important. The first one is that having the space that's dedicated specifically to helping women in some capacity, but especially women who are trying to be professional and create a career, especially in the visual arts. But I firmly think that to be able to be a well-rounded person, or even to have a well-rounded society of well-rounded people, you should be exposed to the visual arts and to the humanities, to science and technology.